We don't claim to be able to change the world. We just change people. And then they change the world. We're Texas.
So then the next question is, well, how can an increase in nitric oxide lead to these chronic illnesses? And my answer to that is that nitric oxide, acting through its oxidative product peroxynitrite, which we talked about a little bit before, can initiate a vicious cycle. And once the cycle is initiated, the cycle is the cause of illness.
So basically, why do we sleep is actually really easy to answer right now. We sleep because we wear every single day of our lives. We wear in a cellular basis, which means that inside of the cell we have these microstructures, micromachines, enzymes, we have proteins, we have lipids, and the membranes, you name it. We have a lot of structures in there. And they're working inside of the cell so the cell can work in a proper way. We discovered one thing. We discovered that we have a biochemical pathway to restore. So it doesn't matter if we wear during the day, during the time that we're actually awake, because we have a pathway to make us restore in that cellular basis. So imagine those proteins, those enzymes, imagine that they are wearing out, and during the period of the night, when we're sleeping, we have the ability to restore. So they will function properly. You wear, you restore, and the equilibrium of this equation, it tells you that the cell have the micromachines working in a proper way. There's one problem. We discover that this biochemical pathway to restoration led by the brain, it can get sick too. So whatever I'm saying is that sleep can lose the ability to restore. So if we lose the ability to restore, we're wearing out in a higher amount and we're restoring in a lower amount. That equilibrium that I just explained a few minutes ago, it gets broken. So the cell is not going to have enzymes, proteins, membranes, all the structures, microtubula, that they're going to start working in an appropriate way. So that means that the cell is going to get sick. It's going to work in a way that it shouldn't work. So we discover another thing too. We discover that every time that we have a lack of restoration because we have a sleep disorder, because we're sleep deprived, you name it, we produce a huge amount of superoxide. And when that superoxide gets combined with the nitric oxide, which is essential for the cell, then it produces something that we name peroxynitrate. And peroxynitrate destroys every single thing that is around him. So it can destroy proteins, it can destroy enzymes, it can even make holes on the membranes, it can destroy the microtubule, which means that the cell now is going to work with an inappropriate machines. So then, how sleep disorders are going to lead to chronic diseases? Well, imagine that we have a cell, and that cell, it wears out and it gets restored in an inappropriate way. And suddenly there's something there to make that equation to get broken, and now that cell doesn't restore in an appropriate way. That cell is going to lead to death, but the problem is that it will die in a long period of time. During the time when that cell is dying, it's going to show symptoms. Symptoms because it's not working properly, because it's wearing out in a higher amount and is restoring in a lower amount. So day by day, that process is happening inside of the cell. And by that processing happening inside of the cell, it gets a cycle. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse until we actually diagnose what is the problem and we treat them. But if we don't diagnose and we don't treat them, then that cycle is going to keep going and going over there until the cell actually dies. The cell is going to work in an appropriate way before that we actually have a lesion in the cell. So that is how sleep lack of restoration lead to those diseases, chronic diseases, and at the end, to the end of the cell.